This is the 2022 Hyundai Palisade, and this specific one is the limited trim level, which would be the luxury equivalent down in the States. Steve here, Cars with Steve, and before we dive into this vehicle, I want to give Ajax Hyundai a huge shout out and a thank you for giving me access to this thing to shoot the video today. Drop down in the comment section below in order to find their contact details. Now this is going to be an in-depth video looking at everything you need to know about this vehicle. We're looking at what's going on underneath the hood, drivetrains, first, second, third row spacing, and a number of other things. But if you're looking specifically for how to use the media screen or how to use the steering wheel, instrument cluster, things like that, check down into the description below for those links as well. We're going to be diving in deep, figuring out everything we need to know about this vehicle. Let's go for it. The styling for the Palisade actually is pretty nice. There are a series of different colors that are available. Looking at the wheels themselves, there are two different sizes available. It's either going to be an 18 or a 20-inch tire. It's an 18 in the base trim level and then 20-inch as you get into those higher trims. Series of different rim choices that are available there as well. And looking at the drivetrain of the vehicle, down in the States, you guys have the option for front wheel or all-wheel drive. Up in Canada, we're strictly looking at the all-wheel drive option instead. But looking at the overall styling, the rim itself is fairly nice. Now, I mean, you do have some different options, like I said, depending on the trim that you're in. You could always look at hydro dipping as well if you wanted to kind of customize your Palisade a little bit more. But as we start to move forward, we do have our LED headlamps there, and those are going to be for the daytime or the nighttime running lamps. That beautiful look. I kind of love the sleek styling there. Now, one really cool thing that I love about the Palisade is some of the technology that's included across the entire vehicle lineup. We do have the forward sensing system there in some of the higher trims as well. Now, as we start to move forward, we've got this gorgeous silver lip right along the entire grille there. And then, like I said, we do have our forward sensors, which we can make out along the side. And then looking again at that silver, that really contrasts nicely with the bottom part of that bumper as well. So it really does make it pop. Getting underneath the hood of the vehicle is pretty straightforward. We've got a latch on the inside there, just by the driver's side. But actually getting into the hood, so if we look just under the Hyundai badge there, we're just going to slide our hand underneath and we've got a little release there. Popping this thing up, and there are hydraulics, which is nice, so we don't have to worry about locking this thing up ourselves. But first impressions of the engine, it is very clean. Now, Hyundai did choose for a cover there, and that literally covers off the main components of the actual motor itself, which here nor there, I know some people aren't really a big fan of looking at all these engine components, but it is nice what they've done. Now, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or the States, if you get either the base or the fully loaded calligraphy version of the vehicle, there is only one engine choice available, and that's the 3.8 liter Atkinson GDI V6 that we're looking at here. From a power perspective, this thing can push out 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, which is fairly impressive. Now, we do have a few different options there, so we can easily top up fluids if we want to. If you're handy, you want to kind of check your oil yourself, you can easily do that. The dipstick is right at the front of the bay there. And then we've also got easy access to the battery. But overall, I do like the look of this thing. It is fairly clean. Now, if you're handy yourself and you're a bigger fan of kind of doing some basic work, you could technically replace the bulbs just because of the way that everything's positioned back here. It is extremely easy to get to some of these base bulbs on the front end. So for our daytime or nighttime running lamps, etc. Like I said, we've got easy access to the washer fluid and the coolant there as well, so we can top up some fluids very easily ourselves. Now, as we move towards the back of the vehicle, firstly, beautiful Palisade badge along the top there, along with our Hyundai badge as well. Now, because we are in Canada, we're looking at the H-Track badge, which is just signifying that this is the all-wheel drive version of the vehicle. But it does have a nice look, and we do have some great standard technology in the back end. So we do have our wiper, always a good thing. We've got our reverse sensing system there as well as our backup camera. Now, a couple things. Looking at towing, we actually can tow quite a little bit, so it doesn't matter which trim level of the vehicle you've got. We are looking at up to 5,000 pound towing capacity inside of this vehicle. Now, this specific one obviously doesn't have the hitch and things like that, so we could get it at the time of ordering from the dealer. You could do an aftermarket install as well. But next up, taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. Let's get you into focus there, but as you can see, nice look, and that's typical Hyundai styling. Along the back of the fob, this is where we're going to go to get access to the emergency access key. Click it, lock it into place. But on the front side of the fob, so we do have our lock button, unlock button, remote start, trunk release, as well as our horn or our panic alarm. Now, this is going to be the standard fob for the 3 higher trim levels. Inside of the base version of the vehicle, it's just going to be a regular key instead. So we're not going to be push button start inside of that lower trim. But remote starting, we do have that option directly from the key fob through our cell phone, etc. In order to remote start, all we're going to do is just press and hold the middle button there after we make sure the door is locked. So we're just going to press and hold. So you can see there, the vehicle is remote started. Canceling the remote start, we just press that circle button there again. So that one that we used to remote start, we press that once. And remote start is now canceled. So it really is that simple. Now, getting into the trunk of the vehicle, we could actually look on the fob if we wanted to. So we could literally just press and hold this button in order to be able to get into the trunk. But we have a few other ways that we can do it. So, on the inside of the vehicle, we do have a little button just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, so we could open up the door that way if we wanted to. But if we look under the Hyundai badge, so we look underneath the S in Palisade, there is a button there as well. We could literally just button press that. Oh, power! Beautiful. And I love that, so we do have power there. We could use it to open and close on the fob. We can open and close on the inside, and then we can also open and close using the button along the top there as well. Well, at least close anyways. Opening is gonna be a little bit more challenging. All right, so as you can see there, we have a nice amount of width, depth, and height, and that's strictly for the cargo area by itself. But we do also have the option of folding the third row seats down, and it's nice because it's a power process inside of this vehicle. So it's power up, power down for the third row, and then it's power down and then manual up for the second row. But very straightforward. Just along our left-hand side there, we have a series of different buttons. So we've got our release for our up and for our down, which is nice, and we can fold these things down independently if we wanted to. Single button press. And then same idea, so we can get that other row folded down there as well. I love how simple it is. But look at the difference in the depth when we have that third row folded down. So it is nice because we can kind of split the bench off one way or the other if we need to create more storage space for different seating configurations and things like that. Now, as I mentioned, we do also have the option in order to do a power release for that second row, and it's the same idea there. So it is just a release, and down it goes. Now, we do have the option either for a bench seat in the middle, so we do have the option for either a 7 or an 8 seat configuration, just depending on what you need. But if we go for the 7 seat configuration, we will have dual captain chairs. One thing to note, the bench seat configuration is going to be standard in the lower trim levels, so the 3 lower ones. We do have the option in order to get the dual captain's chair set up there as well in the 2 higher trims. So it's standard in the highest trim, optional inside of this limited or luxury package. But look at all the depth there. So it is nice that we can kind of fold these things down how we want to create the optimal depth that we need. And like I said, we can have one row folded up or down if we want to. So let's say if you needed to kind of store some boxes, but at the same time you wanted to make sure that you've got enough space for people in the back seat, you've got that flexibility to be able to easily do that. Now, as we actually take a peek in the back end of the vehicle here, so like I said, we do have some options in order to power fold the third row, and we can power fold and then manually lift up the second row. But we do have a little storage tray there, so popping this thing up, we do have a few things. So firstly, we do have our jack there, so if we ever need to change the tire, we can do that. And the tire is actually just located underneath the vehicle. So you could call Hyundai Roadside Assistance, or you could change the tire yourself if you wanted to. We do have a cargo net in the back here, and we've got a little toolkit in here as well. Now, we do also have one other thing kind of staring us right in the face, and that's going to be the cargo shade. So the cargo shade by default is actually going to be hidden in the back here, which I think is actually a brilliant idea. We do have the option of easily installing it inside of that third row as well. We've got a few different options in order to install in 2 different locations. But let's actually go through the process. So it actually is very straightforward in order to be able to install this thing. All we're gonna do is we're gonna start off on one side or the other, and we're literally just gonna pull in order to be able to release it. So as you can see, it's now released. All we're gonna do from there, fold down, and then we've got 2 different options there. So we have 2 different trays on both sides, and we can select one spot or the other. And literally all we're gonna do is push, because it's spring loaded on both sides. We're gonna push, drop down, and it's locked into place. So really is that simple. And then all we're gonna do is just grab the shade. We're gonna feed it in both sides, up and over, and it's locked into place. So if you need to hide some things underneath the back end of the cargo area here, we can easily do that. And like I said, we've got 2 different locations that we can actually put this thing in on the inside. Filling up fuel inside of the Palisade is very straightforward. So along our driver's side, we've got a little cutout and a cap system. Now this one is not locked, but if you're worried about fuel theft and things like that, there are some aftermarket solutions that you could look at in order to key to lock the actual tank itself. So you've got some options there. Click that in order to lock it back into place. Now, looking at the manufacturer's recommendation for fuel, regular 87 gas. So 87 octane is all you need to use inside of this vehicle. You don't need to use any sort of premium fuel inside of this at all. Now I gotta say, this is actually pretty nice. Like looking at the overall design styling of the door, we've got this beautiful white leather there, contrasts nicely with this wood grain. Now it looks like, yeah, this is a faux wood grain there, but it is nice at the same time. Now, some trim levels of the Palisade also have a little cover there. So a sunshade, which is definitely a nice thing. Things are a little bit bright, we can block that out. And that's gonna be the same for both of the second row seats there. But overall impressions of the styling, it is nice. This one does have the Harman Kardon sound system in there, and we do have a little bottle holder along the door, and two actually little cup holders along the door there as well, which is kind of a nice thing. Now, we do have quite a few options in order to get into the third row of the vehicle. And it's pretty straightforward to be able to do it. So first one, we actually do have a latch along the bottom there. We can pull that if we want to manually fold. So you don't have to worry about being in the third row or being in the trunk in order to fold this thing down. We can easily lock it down that way. But one thing to think about, when we lock it down, it's actually locked down into place, which is kind of nice. So in order to pull the seat back up, we just have to pull that lever again and then lift it back up. So really is that simple. Now we do have a few different ways we can fold the seat down as well in order to get into that third row. So we do have a button just along the very bottom there, so we can press that in order to be able to slide the seat forward, and it's literally just a slide so we can move through. Or if the seat was back and the third row passengers wanted to get in instead, we've got a little button along the top. So same idea, we just push that button and it goes. Let's have a peek inside. All right, so getting into the back row actually isn't overly challenging, which is definitely a nice thing, but we do have a few things to consider. So firstly, the middle row actually can be moved forwards and backwards a little bit. So if we need to create more space, we could easily do that, because I am 6 feet tall, and with this second row seat moved back as far as it'll go, it's a teeny bit tight back here. Like my knee is literally touching the back there, and me sitting back upright, I've got about ½ an inch roughly of headspace. So not a ton of space back here, but like I said, we do have the flexibility of being able to move these seats forwards and backwards a little bit. So as I slide this thing back, this is kind of the minimum distance that it needs to be. So with that kind of minimum distance for that second row, I have a ton of space back here now for my knees, and same idea, good amount of space for my head there as well. Now we do have 3 seats in the third row of the vehicle. Let me just fold this down for a second. There we go. Make it a little bit easier for us to see each other. But it is nice, and the seats themselves are actually very comfortable. Now we do have options for either cloth or leather seats, depending on which trim level of the vehicle that we're in. You're definitely not going to be able to get 3 of me back here. So 2 maybe, with a little me maybe in the middle, but outside of that, 3 full-size adults probably won't be able to comfortably sit in the third row. But younger family, whatever the case may be, people will be able to fit back here no problem. I actually am kind of surprised with some of the things that are back here though. One of the great things, we do have seats that are fully... we can literally recline these seats if we wanted to. And that is so cool. I love the fact that we've got that option inside of this vehicle. So literally just a button press in order to be able to bring the seats forwards, backwards if we wanted to. We've got a few USB power points, one on each side, a few cup holders there as well. And we've got some cargo hooks. Up overhead, we do have our base for our vent control there, so for HVAC system. And then we have a few microphones in the back here as well, which is kind of nice because the Palisade does have an intercom system essentially inside of some trims of the vehicle, which means that the driver can easily communicate to people that are in the second or third row without having to spin their heads and yell. So it's kind of funny. I come from a family with 9 kids, and they literally, whenever one of the kids were being bad, they'd have to kind of like flip around in order to yell at us, or they're yelling hoping that we're hearing them in the back row. So it is kind of nice to know that now we've got some speakers and some other things that we can communicate to one another without having to worry about screaming at each other. Now, taking a peek at the second row of the vehicle, it is fairly nice back here. Comfort's great, styling is incredible. Looking, I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody 6 feet tall. I'm 6 feet tall, and I've got a great amount of knee space, good amount of foot space, and up overhead, I've got about like 4.5 inches of space there, which is amazing. Now I do have the option inside of this vehicle where we could literally move these seats forwards and backwards as well. So if we need to create some more space for people in the back, we could absolutely do that. Where it's like a little bit more comfortable, like I'd say maybe here, kind of like max for me. And then that would create more than enough room for a 6-foot version of myself to sit back there. And we also have the option, so the one that we would pull, the lever we'd pull in order to be able to fold the seat down, we could actually use that to be able to recline the seat as well. Super comfortable. The cushion on the back of my head there, it is super comfortable as well. And like I mentioned, we do have the option either for cloth or leather seats. Haven't been in a cloth version of the vehicle yet, but I mean, if this is any indication, this is going to be a really comfortable ride all around. Now, a few things that are going to be available standard versus optional. This obviously is the bench seat of the vehicle, which means we've got an 8-seat configuration. We do have the option for a 7-seater, which means that this middle seat would go away. So we would have dual captain's chairs there instead. It makes it easier to pass through to the back, but we could easily fold these seats forward to get into that third row as well. So it's going to depend on how many seats you actually need. But we do also have cup holders there, and that's going to be standard obviously because we're in the bench seat of the vehicle. Now, a few other things to point out. We do have a few pockets behind the driver passenger seat. Typical Hyundai styling. We also do have a few USB ports in the back of the seat, which is such a brilliant idea. I wish more manufacturers would do that. We do have the option of lifting up the sunshade here as well, and it is great because it does block off some sun very, very nicely. Beautiful trim along the side there. We've got a few cup holders here as well, which is great, and then a little bottle holder in the actual door itself. Now, taking a look at the armrest there, we do have a few different buttons that are available for our climate control. So we do have heated seats, and that's going to be heated outboard seats. So this middle seat is never going to be heated whatsoever. We've got some basics for our climate control, figure out if it's going to our face, feet, etc. Down a tiny little bit, we do have a 12-volt power point. Overall comfort styling-wise, this is fairly nice. Up overhead, we do have our handle there as well as our hook. We've got our basic vent control over top, and then we also do have some cabin light controls there as well. So we do have quite a few things that are available standard inside of this vehicle. And like I said, I still can't get over the comfort of the actual headrest itself. Like, we could lift this thing up easily, and it is super, super comfortable. I'm really hoping the driver's seat is going to be that same way. But speaking of which, let's go have a look. Taking a peek along our driver's side door, we've got a button on the outside there, and we can press that in order to be able to either lock or press again to unlock the door. But hopping inside, look at this. Beautiful, beautiful look there. But starting off along the driver's side door. So we've got a faux wood grain along the side, stretches across the entire dashboard there as well. We do have some seat memory buttons that are standard in some of the higher trim levels of the vehicle. You will have those seat memory buttons when we have the power seats there. So we have a series of different options that are available. We can literally adjust seat forwards, backwards, etc. And then we also have a leg adjust. So we can literally adjust the individual part of that forward cushion there, which is, I think, a brilliant idea. But once you have the seat set up to your own personal liking, you're just going to press and hold until you hit a chime, and then that's literally going to set the seat up for you. Looking along the side there, we've got a nice silver highlight as well. We can adjust our side view mirrors, lock, unlock, window up and down, and we can also lock up that rear window as well if we want to. Along the driver passenger door, we also do have a little bit of storage there, as you can see. Just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we can increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. We do have our sensing system there. We can turn that on or off. We've got our lane keeping system, so that's the one that's going to keep us nudged in our lane. And then we've got our traction control system. We also can press and hold in order to be able to open and close the trunk. And we've got our electronic parking brake there as well. And as you can see, we do have our adjust there for our steering wheel. And it is going to be a manual adjust, but it is telescopic there, so we can easily adjust as necessary. And as we start to move down, we also do have our hood release there, so we can easily get underneath the hood if we need to. Moving inside does not disappoint whatsoever. Comfort-wise, the headrest is super comfortable as well, so definitely get an A+ there, Hyundai. This is a really, really comfortable seat. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. So let's look at some basic highlights. We do have our wood trim there stretched across the entire side of the vehicle. We've got our nice contrast there. So we've got our black versus our white contrast there as well, which does look nice. But looking at the actual steering wheel, this is beautiful. I love it. I love the feeling of it. Nice leather wrapped all the way around. We do have the option for heated steering wheel in some of the trim levels of the vehicle. So firstly, stick on the left-hand side is going to let us figure out what's going on with our running lamps. I always just recommend keeping it on the auto setting because it'll automatically flip us between our daytime, nighttime running lamps depending on how bright it is outside. And one of the great things when we're in the auto mode, we can flip away for our auto high beams as well. So that means that if the vehicle senses a potential oncoming vehicle, it's going to start dimming your high beams and then bring them right back on there again. So it is very smart. We could also just kind of lock our high beams on permanently there as well if we want to. Stick on the right-hand side is going to let us adjust what's going on with our front and our rear wiper there as well. So we adjust the rear wiper on the very tip. We're going to pull in towards us for the front wiper. We're going to push away for the rear wiper fluid. We do have paddle shifters inside this vehicle, so our minus on the left and then our plus on the right-hand side. So we can literally adjust what gear we're in as we go. Now, across the entire vehicle lineup, the steering wheel itself is actually going to be a manual adjust, and it's telescopic there as well, so we can literally set it up for the perfect position for us. Looking at the seat adjusting, it might be manual, might be a power process, depending on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in. Because of the trim level we're in right now, we can literally power adjust to bring the seat forwards, backwards. We can move the backrest backwards, forwards, and then we've got a two-way adjust for our lumbar support as well. So it is nice to know that we've got some flexibility there. Now, with the seat kind of all the way down, up overhead, wow, I've got like 6-7 inches of headspace there. So definitely if you're taller, you will be able to fit inside of this, like 6'4", 6'5", not an issue. Now we do also have the option for a sunroof, and that's going to be standard in some of the higher trim levels of the vehicle. And we do have the option for a full panoramic roof. So it still would just be the first part of the roof that would open up, but it is nice to know we can get one that'll kind of stretch across the base of the vehicle there as well. Now for the media screen itself, we have a few different options for the screen, depending on which version of the vehicle that you're in. But we do have the option for factory navigation in some of the higher trims, but if yours doesn't have navigation, don't worry about it, because we can still hook up through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze directly through this middle screen. Now, one interesting thing on Hyundai's part is that the lower trim levels of the vehicle are wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, whereas the higher trim levels with the factory navigation are going to be a wired solution. I think that that's kind of backwards. I wish that we would have the wireless in the higher trim levels, but Hyundai, if you're listening, get wireless. I think it's a beautiful system, and having an optional wireless charging pad inside of this thing, I think is just brilliant. So being able to use those wireless systems is definitely a nice thing. But there are quite a few options and quite a few different things that we can do inside of this vehicle and inside of the media screen. So like I said, we do have the option for factory navigation, and it is a very responsive screen. So literally pinch to zoom, we can drop in different point of interest and things like that. We could look at different point of interest icons, categories, and things like that. Looking down, we are push button start in the 3 highest trim levels. The base trim level is just going to be a regular key instead, but we do have a series of different buttons. So we've got a volume rocker there. And then on the right side, we've got a tuning rocker. But looking throughout the middle, we have a series of other buttons that are going to do a number of different things. So we can bring up our map, we can bring up some navigation preferences, we've got a radio, which radio looks beautiful. It's kind of got like a nostalgic type of look to it. We've got our different media, so we can change between AM, FM, Sirius XM, sounds of nature. If we had a USB stick with MP3s on it, that would show up. If we had other MP3 players connected, those would all show up as options as well. We've got our 4-way blinkers. We can change between songs or radio stations, and we've got a favorite button, so we can literally have it set up so that we can do that passenger talk, so the intercom talk inside of the vehicle. We can have it so that it turns off the display as well, so we've got some flexibility for the button itself. Moving down, we do have the option for our dual zone climate control, and I guess technically tri-zone when we look at the one in the back. And we can easily turn that one on or off if we want to. And one of the cool things is that we can also lock out the rear system. So if the kids in the back, people in the back are kind of fighting over the climate control, you can literally lock out that back console so they can't fight over it anymore. But it is nice to know that you've got that option. We've got some basic climate control settings. So do we want to go into our windshield, face, feet, etc.? And we also have a series of other buttons for air circulation, our rear window defrost, etc. Now moving down from that, this is so unique and it's kind of neat all at the same time. So we don't have our traditional gear shifter anymore. What we're looking at are a series of different buttons. So we've got our park, reverse, neutral, and drive mode. We've got our auto hold button there as well. Auto hold is an interesting one. I recommend turning it on if you're the type of person that enjoys being able to take your foot off the brake when you're stopped. Now that's an interesting one because with that setting turned on, exactly that. You come to a complete stop, you can take your foot off the brake, and the car's not going to move whatsoever. So brilliant. We do have a few other things as well. We've got a beautiful selector switch for our different drive and terrain modes. So we literally on the left-hand side have our drive modes. We press the drive terrain button in order to go into different terrain modes. And each mode will do something different. Now, me personally, I don't stop talking about it. The sport mode is absolutely beautiful. It revs the engine up higher. It uses a little bit more fuel because of that as well. But if you want a sportier performance, sport mode is where you're going to want to live. You've got a comfort mode as well. And then if you're going off-roading, you do have a sand mode, mud mode, etc. Like I said, each mode is going to do something different. Like when we're in the snow mode, that's going to play with the traction and stability control in order to prevent wheel slippage and things like that in snowy conditions. So it is nice that we can kind of select which way we want to do that and how we want to get it done. We do have our downhill brake control as well, so that as we're going downhill is going to make sure that the vehicle is set at a speed. So let's say if we're going over rugged terrain and things like that, we can set it at the speed we'd like to, and then we just have to worry about the steering wheel control instead. We've got our reverse sensing system, so our park assist system. So that beeping that we get as we back up, if you don't want that beeping going off, we can turn that system off. We do have our auto start stop, so that's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if we're stopped for an extended period of time with the car still running. Now moving down a tiny little bit, we do have heated seats as an option, ventilated seats as an option there as well. So we've got a series of different buttons there, and that's heated ventilated for the front row. We do have the option for heated second row seats for the outboard seats on some trims, and then we also do have the heated steering wheel there. And now taking a look, we have this like, I don't know if you can hear that, it's kind of like a faux carbon fiber type of feel to it, and it does look really sharp. Like it does contrast nicely the silver with the black there. It does look very nice. We do have a little compartment there, nice slow release, which this part is kind of neat because we do have our USB port there, and we also have a few cup holders that kind of swing out. So if you want just more storage space, you don't need the cup holders. We can literally lock the cup holders into place if we wanted to, so it's kind of more of an open style console instead, and then we can literally just push one or the other in order to be able to kind of create that cup holder. I think it's a brilliant design. I haven't seen many vehicles with it, but it is nice to know that it is in the Palisade. We do have the option for wireless charging, and that's just going to be available in the highest trim level. And then in that higher trim, not only do we have a wireless charging pad, there also is an optional heads-up display. So it is standard in that higher trim level. It's not available on any of the lower trims though. So if you want that package, if the heads-up display specifically, you have to go for the highest trim level of the vehicle. Down a bit more, we do also have a little armrest there, tiny little removable tray, and then we've got some more power points down here. So we've got another USB port and another 12-volt power point. So lots of power because not only do we have the main power there, but underneath, we also have a few more power points there. So another 12-volt power point and another USB. So we have tons of USB power points in the front, in the middle row, in the back row as well. These power literally all over the place, which I think is absolutely incredible. Now, as we start to move up overhead, we do have the option for an auto-dimming rearview mirror, standard in the majority of the trim levels. We've got our home link buttons there as well, so if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can easily program in that code there. Up overhead a little bit more, slow releasing. Oh, interesting. So this is like a rear passenger view, but it's kind of got like a convex type of interesting look there. So we've got a little mirror there, so you can literally see what's going on with people in the back row just a little bit differently. I think that's actually a brilliant design. I'm not gonna lie, I was actually expecting a sunglasses holder there. I was like, how are they doing that? But it's not. It's literally a little mirror that kind of gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view on what's going on in that second and third row. I think that's a brilliant design idea. Interesting. Now, up overhead a little bit more, we do have our tow, our SOS mode, and because this one has the sunroof, we could literally pop that whole roof open. Ah, so nice, let there be light. And it is nice because it's one button press, auto open, close, etc. And it is manual for the actual shade itself. We've got some basic for our cabin control lighting there as well, turn all lights on, etc. Now, we do also have our visor there with a vanity mirror, lights kind of built into the top there, which is definitely a nice thing. And we've got a little business card holder. We can extend this out and it blocks literally the majority of the sun that would be on our side of the face there. So it is brilliant that it kind of stretches across the entire back there as well. But I have to say, overall, I am impressed with the way that this thing looks. Like, we've got a media screen there that's built nicely into the dash. It's not like we'd see in some other vehicles where it's kind of like a faux tablet, but we've got nice aluminum trim highlights there as well. And overall, it does make this vehicle pop. Now, one thing about the Palisade, it is only available with a 3.8 liter engine, and that's a 6-cylinder engine, but 292 horsepower, nothing in the vehicle. It should be a little bit of fun. Now, one nice thing, this vehicle is also a dealership demo, which means that it's already gone through its break-in period, so I don't have to worry about taking it quite as easy as I normally would. I can't get over that blind spot monitoring system, like literally every time I see it. So it is so cool. So you flip your left and right turn stick, whatever the case may be, and then inside of the cluster, it lets you know what's going on with the left or the right side. Because yeah, we do have our blind spot monitoring system there, so our blind spot system, But just to kind of give you like a double check to see and make sure there's nothing either side of you, I just think it's such a brilliant idea, and it's such a simple thing all at the same time. So the fact that Hyundai's got it there as a default on this thing, I think is beautiful. Okay, giving a little bit of gas. Okay, all right. I'm curious what it's going to be like kind of getting up to highway speed, so I'm going to take this thing out for a little bit of a spin on the highway just to kind of see what it's like. It's pretty nice though. The heated seat option is great there as well, so great for, we're coming up to the winter time now, unfortunately, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun shooting videos again when it's like minus 20 outside. Oh, the things we do, I tells ya. Oh, this is nice though. I'm very surprised at the comfort level inside this vehicle. I think that, like, looking at everything, the only thing the Palisade doesn't have that I would like to see, massage chair seats. Like, I think that would just bring this vehicle to kind of the next level. I understand the price point that they're at. It's kind of difficult to do, but giving the people the option to have a massage chair seat as well, I think is a brilliant idea. It's impressive. That's impressive. I love it. Love it. Now I'm gonna kind of hug back here a little bit so I can let this person in front of me kind of do what they got to do to get on the highway, and then I'm gonna give it a teeny little bit of gas. This is gonna be fun. All right, and here we go. Okay. That was impressive. That was 0 to 100 in like a few seconds. That was amazing. Wow. That's pretty good. That is really good. Yeah, we've got the smart cruise system going there now as well. And in theory then, we should also have the steering wheel there. Like, look, ma, no hands. So as of right now, I've currently got it set to highway speed. I'm not going highway speed because the car in front of me is a little bit slower than that. But this thing is literally turning for me. It's keeping me perfectly balanced in the lane there as it goes. And that's that lane follow system. I love it so much. It's such a great system. Oh, that's such a great system. And folks, that was the Hyundai Palisade. What did you think? Like I said, I am surprised with how much stuff is in this vehicle, the price point that it's at. Comfort-wise is great. Reliability is there. You get the Hyundai warranty as well, which is incredible. Canada versus the US also. But what did you think overall? Like, can you see yourself inside of one of these vehicles? Drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you have any questions though, you want some clarification on a few things, not really sure which way you should go, let me know. More than willing to talk you through any issues that you might be having. I also recommend chatting with the folks at Ajax Hyundai. These guys are incredible. They know their stuff, and they'll make sure that you're in the right vehicle. But overall, if you enjoyed the video, thumbs up and share it with your social network. Think about subscribing because it definitely helps the channel grow. And until I see you next time, take care. Super bright outside, so we could actually lift this thing. So whether you go for the dual captain's chairs or that bench seat, which the bench sheet